Commander Zethara stood on the bridge of her ship, the Starweaver, watching the stars through the main viewing screen. She was a tall Valian with blue skin and silver eyes that reflected her years of experience in deep space exploration. Today felt different from all her other missions. Today she was going to make contact with a species that no one in the galaxy wanted to talk about. The humans. Lieutenant Crix looked up from his navigation console, his green-scaled hands moving quickly over the controls. Commander, we are approaching the boundary of what the star charts call human territory. Should I plot our usual trade route through the sector? Zethara frowned as she looked at the star map displayed on the main screen. Something was wrong with the shipping lanes. Every single trade route curved around a large section of space like water flowing around a rock. No, Crix, show me all the standard routes through this area. The map changed, showing dozens of colored lines representing different trade paths, exploration routes, and patrol patterns. Every single one avoided the region marked simply as human space. It was like looking at a hole in the galaxy where no one dared to go. That's strange, said Dr. Vexlin from her science station. The elderly Valian scientist had joined this mission specifically to study new species. I've never seen shipping routes avoid an entire sector like this. Usually traders will go anywhere if there's profit to be made. Zethara walked over to the communications panel. Open a channel to the Galactic Trade Authority. I want to know why all commerce avoids this region. The response came back within minutes, but it wasn't what they expected. The Trade Authority official, a nervous Krillian with twitching antennae, appeared on screen. Commander Zethara, I see you're asking about the restricted zone. I'm afraid all information regarding that sector is classified under Galactic Council Directive 2387. Classified? Zethara asked. We're conducting a diplomatic mission. Surely we can access basic information about local species. The Krillian's antennae twitched more rapidly. I'm sorry, Commander. The directive is clear. No information about the humans or their territory can be shared without authorization from the highest levels of the Galactic Council. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the bridge crew in confused silence. Pull up everything we can find about humans in the open databases. Zethara ordered. Dr. Vexlin worked at her station for several minutes before shaking her head. Commander, this is very unusual. The databases show that humans appeared on the galactic stage about 200 years ago from a system called Sol. But after that initial contact, almost all records are sealed or missing. What about the species classification reports? Asked Lieutenant Crix. That's where it gets interesting, Dr. Vexlin replied. The initial reports describe humans as a relatively young species with basic space travel technology. They were classified as low threat and potential trade partners. But then the reports just stop. Everything after first contact is classified. Zethara felt a chill run down her spine. In her 40 years of diplomatic service, she had never encountered a situation where an entire species was treated like a galactic secret. Try intercepting local communications, she ordered. Maybe passing ships will tell us what the official channels won't. They spent the next few hours listening to radio chatter from merchant vessels, exploration ships, and military patrols. What they heard made the mystery even deeper. A Krillian merchant captain was speaking to his crew about route planning. No, you fool, not through that sector. We go around. Always around. You know what happened to the Hegemon fleet when they didn't listen? What happened to the Hegemon fleet? Crix whispered, but the transmission had already moved on to other topics. Later, they picked up a conversation between two Zephyrian explorers. The Council says we need to map that nebula, but it's too close to human space. Remember the Battle of Kepler Station? No one wants to risk it. The Battle of Kepler Station? Dr. Vexlin tried searching the databases, but again found only classified files. As the day went on, they intercepted dozens of similar conversations. Ship captains warning their crews to stay away from human territory. Merchants complaining about longer routes that avoided the sector. Military officers mentioning battles and incidents that were never explained. By evening, Zithara had heard enough fragments to piece together a disturbing pattern. Over the past 50 years, multiple military forces had entered human space. The conversations always ended the same way, with references to missing fleets and battles that no one wanted to discuss. Dr. Vexlin, I need you to run a scan of the space around human territory, Zethara said. Look for anything unusual. Debris fields, energy signatures, anything that might explain why everyone is so afraid. The scientist worked at her instruments for over an hour before looking up with a pale expression. Commander, you need to see this. The main screen changed to show a detailed scan of the region around human space. What they saw made the entire bridge crew gasp in shock. Debris fields, dozens of them scattered throughout the area just outside human territory. The computer analysis showed pieces of ships from every major military force in the galaxy. Krillian, battle cruisers, Zephyrian destroyers, Hegemon dreadnoughts, and vessels from at least 12 other species. How many ships are we looking at? Zethara asked quietly. Dr. Vexlin checked her readings twice before answering. Based on the debris analysis, I estimate the remains of over 300 vessels, all military, all destroyed completely. 300 ships, Lieutenant Crix repeated in disbelief. That's larger than most species' entire space fleets. Commander, Dr. Vexlin continued, her voice shaking slightly, there's something else. The computer has identified the signature, debris pattern of the Hegemon Third Fleet, the same fleet that disappeared 5 years ago, with over 40 ships and 200,000 crew members. Jethera stared at the screen showing the scattered remains of so many ships. The Hegemon Empire was one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy. Their third fleet could have conquered most star systems single-handedly. Now it was nothing but floating scrap metal at the edge of human space. Have we detected any human ships in the area? She asked. That's the strangest part, Dr. Vexlin replied. No human vessels in any of the debris fields. No signs of human casualties. It's as if all these fleets just came here and were destroyed without the humans losing a single ship. Zethara walked to the front of the bridge, looking out at the stars that marked the beginning of human territory. Now she understood why the shipping lanes curved around this space, why all the records were classified, why even the bravest merchants and explorers refused to enter this region. It wasn't just that humans were dangerous. Lots of species were dangerous. The galaxy was full of military powers and aggressive civilizations. But this was different. This suggested a level of military capability that was beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. Commander, Lieutenant Crix said softly, our orders are to establish diplomatic contact with the humans, but based on what we're seeing. I know, Zethara replied. Every military force that has entered human space has been completely destroyed. No survivors, no escape, no trace of the humans who did it. She continued staring at the boundary ahead of them. Somewhere beyond those stars was a species that had managed to make the entire galaxy afraid without ever leaving their own territory. A species so powerful that even mentioning them required the highest security clearances. Set course for human space, she said finally. Her crew stared at her in shock. Commander, Dr. Vexlin protested, we've just seen the remains of hundreds of ships. Military fleets that were far more powerful than our single diplomatic vessel. Zethara turned to face her crew. She could see the fear in their eyes, and she felt it too. But she also felt something else, curiosity. In all her years exploring the galaxy, she had never encountered a mystery this deep. Yes, those fleets were destroyed, she said. But they were military fleets. We're a diplomatic mission. Maybe that will make the difference. As the Star Weaver crossed into human space, Zithara hoped she was right. Because if she was wrong, they would become just another debris field floating in the dark. The Star Weaver had been traveling through human space for 3 hours when the communications panel suddenly came to life. Lieutenant Crix jumped in his seat as a calm human voice filled the bridge. Unknown vessel, this is Captain Jake Morrison of the human ship Frontier Guardian. Welcome to human space. Please state your intentions and prepare to be escorted. Zithara felt her heart racing. After seeing all those debris fields, she had expected their first contact with humans to be violent or threatening. Instead, voice sounded almost friendly. This is Commander Zethara of the Valian Confederation ship Starweaver, she replied. We are on a diplomatic mission seeking peaceful contact with your species. There was a brief pause before Captain Morrison responded. Well, that's refreshing. It's been a while since someone came here to talk instead of fight. Hold your position while we match course with you. On the main screen, a human ship appeared. Beside them, it was smaller than the Starweaver, but looked much more advanced. The hull was sleek and dark, with strange energy patterns flowing across its surface. Dr. Vexlin ran her scanners over it and shook her head in confusion. Commander, I can't get a clear reading on their ship. Their technology is unlike anything in our databases. Captain Morrison's face appeared on the main screen. He was a middle-aged human with short brown hair and friendly eyes. He smiled as he looked at the Valian crew. Sorry about that. Our ships have some defensive features that interfere with most scanning equipment. Don't worry, though. We're not hiding anything dangerous from you. Zethara studied the human captain. He seemed genuine and relaxed, nothing like the dangerous warrior she had expected. Captain Morrison, we appreciate your welcome. We were hoping to visit your home world and establish formal diplomatic relations. Earth would love to have visitors, Morrison replied with enthusiasm. It's been too long since we had peaceful guests. I'll escort you there personally. My crew is excited to meet you. As they began traveling deeper into human space, Morrison introduced his crew over the communication link. His navigator was Lisa Brooks, a young woman with bright red hair who asked dozens of questions about Valian star charts. The ship's engineer was Tom Clark, an older man who wanted to know everything about their faster-than-light drive system. Their medical officer, Amy Foster, was fascinated by Valian biology and offered to share human medical knowledge. Your crew seems very friendly, Zethara commented to Morrison during one of their conversations. Morrison laughed. Humans are naturally curious about other species. We love learning new things and making friends. It's one of our best qualities, I think. But as they traveled, small details began to worry Zethara. During a discussion about trade routes, Morrison casually mentioned our defensive actions against previous visitors. When Lisa Brooks was explaining human navigation methods, she referred to that misunderstanding with the hegemony. Tom Clark talked about ship improvements they had made after the incident at Proxima Station. Each time Zethara tried to ask for more details about these events, the humans became vague and changed the subject. Morrison would say things like, "Oh, that's old military history," or classified information, you understand. Dr. Vexlin was running continuous scans of the space around them. On the second day of their journey, she made a disturbing discovery. Commander, I'm detecting massive debris fields throughout this system, she reported quietly. The remains appear to be from multiple species: Krillian, Zephyrian, Hegemon, and others. Detharai looked at the scan results on her personal display. The debris wasn't just scattered randomly. It formed clear patterns, as if entire fleets had been destroyed in organized battles. Any signs of human ships in the debris? She asked. That's the strange part, Dr. Vexelin replied. No human debris at all. Whatever happened here, the humans didn't lose any ships. When they passed near one particularly large debris field, Zethara couldn't stay silent anymore. Captain Morrison, we're detecting the remains of many ships in this area. Can you tell us what happened here? Morrison's friendly expression became more serious. That was from a few years ago. A hegemon fleet entered our space and made some demands we couldn't accept. Things got complicated. Complicated how? Zethara pressed. Well, they wanted us to surrender and become part of their empire, Morrison said with a slight shrug. When we politely declined, they decided to use force to convince us. We had to defend ourselves. Zethara stared at the debris field on her scanner. There had to be the remains of at least 40 ships out there. Captain, that's a lot of debris for a defensive action. Morrison was quiet for a moment. Commander, I hope you understand that humans prefer peace. We really do. But when someone comes to our home with weapons and hostile intentions, we take that very seriously. Something in his tone made Zethara's skin crawl. Morrison still sounded friendly, but there was something underneath his words. Something cold and final. Lieutenant Crix had been monitoring human communications during their journey. He approached Zethara privately when Morrison wasn't on the comlink. Commander, I've been listening to their internal ship communications, he whispered. They're discussing our visit, and some of the things they're saying are concerning. What kind of things? Zethara asked. They keep referring to previous contact situations and resolution protocols. They mention something called the non-aggression response matrix and debates about whether we qualify for standard diplomatic treatment or alternative measures. Zethara felt a chill. Alternative measures? I don't know what it means, Crix replied. But they also mentioned that our ship's weapons systems have been classified as minimal threat level and that our termination requirements would be negligible resource expenditure. The friendly conversation with the human crew suddenly felt much more sinister. Were they being evaluated as a threat? Were the humans deciding whether to destroy them like all those other ships? That evening, Dr. Vexelin made another discovery that changed everything. She had been analyzing the debris fields they had passed, comparing the metal compositions and destruction patterns. Commander, I need to show you something, she said urgently. I've been studying the destroyed ships we've encountered. The damage patterns are unlike anything I've ever seen. She displayed her analysis on the main screen. These ships weren't just destroyed, they were completely vaporized. The debris we're seeing is just tiny fragments of what used to be massive warships. Whatever weapons the humans used, they didn't just win these battles. They obliterated their enemies so completely that almost nothing remained. Zethara studied the data. Each debris field represented a fleet that had been reduced to scattered atoms. How is that possible? Some of these were hegemon dreadnoughts. Those ships have armor that can withstand planet-killing weapons. That's not the most disturbing part, Dr. Vexelin continued. I've analyzed the energy signatures in the debris. These battles didn't last long. Based on the cooling patterns of the metal fragments, each engagement was over in minutes, sometimes less. Minutes? Lieutenant Crix repeated in disbelief. But we're talking about battles between entire fleets. Exactly, Dr. Vexelin said. Grimly, the humans didn't just win these battles. They won them so fast and so completely that their enemies never had a chance to fight back effectively. Zethara walked to the viewing screen and looked at the Frontier Guardian traveling alongside them. Captain Morrison and his crew seemed so normal, so friendly. But the evidence was overwhelming. These humans possessed military technology that could destroy entire fleets in minutes. Commander, Dr. Vexelin said quietly, there's something else. I've been monitoring our escort ship more carefully. The energy readings I'm getting don't match anything in our databases. Their ship is generating power levels that should be impossible for a vessel that size. How much power? Zephyra asked. Enough to destroy our ship hundreds of times over, Dr. Vexlin replied. Maybe thousands of times over. I can't get an exact reading, but whatever weapons they have, they could vaporize us without even slowing down. As if he had heard their conversation, Captain Morrison's face appeared on the main screen again. He was smiling warmly, but now that smile looked different to Zethara. Commander, we'll be reaching Earth in about 6 hours, he said cheerfully. My crew is really looking forward to showing you around. It's going to be great having peaceful visitors for a change. For a change? Zethara asked carefully. Morrison's smile flickered for just a moment. Well, most of our previous visitors weren't really interested in peaceful contact. They usually wanted something else entirely. But you're different. You came here to talk, not to make demands or threats. He paused, and his friendly expression became more serious. That makes all the difference in the world, Commander. All the difference. After Morrison ended the communication, Zethara stood alone on the bridge, trying to understand what they had gotten themselves into. The humans seemed genuinely friendly and welcoming, but they had also destroyed hundreds of alien ships without losing a single vessel of their own. Were they about to meet a species of peaceful diplomats, or were they flying straight into the territory of the most dangerous predators the galaxy had ever seen? Admiral Kate Rogers sat in her office at Earth Defense Command, reviewing classified files that very few humans were allowed to see. The reports spread across her desk told a story that the galaxy would never fully understand. Each file contained details about what humans called contact situations with alien species. She picked up the first file, marked with red letters that said, First Contact, Hegemon Empire. The report began with standard diplomatic language, but quickly turned into something much darker. The Hegemon Empire had arrived at Earth with over 60 warships. Their message was simple and direct. Humanity would surrender immediately and become a slave species in their empire. Earth's cities would be occupied, and humans would work in their factories and mines. Resistance would result in the complete destruction of human civilization. Admiral Rogers remembered that day clearly. She had been a young captain, then, serving on the defense station orbiting Earth. The Hegemon fleet had given humanity exactly 1 hour to surrender. The human response had been polite but firm. We appreciate your offer, but we must respectfully decline. Please leave our space peacefully. The Hegemon commander had laughed at the human response. He ordered his fleet to begin bombing Earth's major cities to show humans what resistance would cost them. That was their first mistake. It was also their last. Admiral Rogers flipped through the tactical reports from what historians later called the 15-minute war. The name was not an exaggeration. From the moment the first Hegemon weapon fired on Earth until the last enemy ship was destroyed, exactly 15 minutes and 37 seconds had passed. The battle reports made for disturbing reading, even for someone who had lived through it. Human defensive systems that the aliens knew nothing about had come online instantly. Weapons that bent the laws of physics had reached out across space and turned 60 massive warships into scattered atoms. But the most important part of the report came next. The humans had tracked the Hegemon fleet back to their staging area, a massive military base in a nearby star system. Every ship, every station, every military installation the hegemony had in that region was eliminated within hours. Admiral Rogers set down the first file and picked up another one. Second Contact, Krillian Expansion Force. This encounter had happened 2 years after the Hegemon incident. The Krillians had been more careful. They sent only 12 ships and tried to negotiate first. But their idea of negotiation was to demand that humans abandon half of their colonies and pay tribute to the Krillian Empire. When humans refused, the Krillians announced they would take what they wanted by force. The result was the same. 12 Krillian ships became floating debris. In under 8 minutes, file after file told similar stories. The Zephyrian Republic had wanted to claim human space for their expanding population. The Vorthan Collective had demanded that humans share their technology. The Nexian Empire had simply announced that human space now belonged to them. Every encounter followed the same pattern. Aliens would arrive with demands backed by military force. Humans would politely refuse and ask them to leave peacefully. The aliens would then attack or threaten to attack. Minutes later, they would cease to exist. Admiral Rogers opened her desk drawer and pulled out a small device that looked like a simple communication unit. It was actually the key to humanity's most closely guarded secret. She pressed a button and spoke into it. "This is Admiral Rogers. I need to speak with Director Chun at the Strategic Defense Initiative." The response came immediately. "Admiral, this is Director Chun. What can I do for you?" "Director, we have a Valian diplomatic ship approaching Earth. They seem genuinely peaceful, but I want to make sure our response protocols are clear." "Understood," Director Chun replied. "Have they made any demands or threats?" "None at all," Admiral Rogers said. "Captain Morrison reports that they're asking for peaceful diplomatic contact. No weapons demands, no territory claims, no ultimatums." "Then they get the full diplomatic treatment," Director Chun said. "Make them welcome. Show them around. Let them see what a peaceful species can expect from humanity." Admiral Rogers smiled. "And if they change their minds about being peaceful, then they get the other treatment," Director Chun replied coldly. "The same one everyone else got." Admiral Rogers ended the communication and returned to the files. She opened one marked Strategic Assessment, Human Military Capabilities. This file contained information that would terrify every military leader in the galaxy. The truth was that humanity's weapons technology was centuries ahead of anything else in known space. While other species had focused on building bigger ships and more powerful conventional weapons, humans had taken a completely different approach. Human scientists had learned to manipulate matter at the quantum level. They could create weapons that didn't just destroy enemy ships, but actually unraveled the atomic bonds holding them together. A single human warship could eliminate entire fleets without using anything that other species would recognize as a weapon. But the most closely guarded secret was that humans could have conquered the entire galaxy decades ago. Their technology was so advanced that no alien military force could offer meaningful resistance. The debris fields scattered around human space represented only a tiny fraction of human military capability. Admiral Rogers picked up another file marked Policy. Decision 2157, Territorial Containment. This document explained why humans had chosen to limit themselves to a relatively small region of space, instead of expanding across the galaxy. The decision had been made by the Global Council after the first few alien encounters. Humanity had realized that their technological advantage was so overwhelming that any expansion would be seen as conquest, even if that wasn't the intention. "We don't want to be the monsters of the galaxy," the policy document stated. "We want to be the neighbors who are friendly to friends and dangerous to enemies." So humanity had drawn clear boundaries around their space and posted warnings for everyone to see. Any species that wanted peaceful contact was welcome. Any species that came with demands or threats would be destroyed so completely that they couldn't threaten anyone ever again. Admiral Rogers read through the contact protocols that had been developed over the years. The rules were simple and clear. Human ships would greet all visitors politely and determine their intentions. Peaceful visitors would be welcomed and escorted to Earth or other human worlds. Hostile visitors would be given one chance to leave peacefully. Anyone who refused that chance would be eliminated with extreme prejudice. The policy had worked perfectly for over a century. Word had spread throughout the galaxy that human space was absolutely off limits to military forces. Pirates, raiders, and aggressive empires had learned to give human territory a wide berth. But peaceful species were always welcome, and humans genuinely enjoyed meeting new civilizations. The few diplomatic contacts they had maintained were with species that approached them with respect and genuine interest in friendship. Admiral Rogers looked at the latest intelligence reports from the galactic community. The other species were still trying to figure out why human space was so feared. Most of them had theories about human aggression or unstable weapons technology. They were completely wrong. Human space wasn't feared because humans were aggressive. It was feared because humans were so incredibly restrained. Every species in the galaxy knew that humans could defend themselves. What they didn't understand was that humans could also have conquered them all long ago, but chose not to. The respect that kept alien fleets away from human borders wasn't based on fear of human expansion. It was based on fear of what humans might do if they ever stopped being so remarkably peaceful. Admiral Rogers closed the files and looked out her office window at Earth's blue skies. Somewhere out there, Captain Morrison was escorting the Valian diplomatic ship toward Earth. If the Valians remained peaceful, they would be welcomed as honored guests and potential allies. But if they revealed hostile intentions, they would join the debris fields that marked the graves of every military force that had ever threatened humanity. The choice was entirely theirs to make. Admiral Rogers pressed another button on her communication device. Morrison, this is Admiral Rogers. Status report on our diplomatic guests. Captain Morrison's voice came through clearly. Admiral, the Valians continue to show no hostile intentions. Their ship is lightly armed for defensive purposes only. They're asking good questions about human culture and seem genuinely interested in peaceful relations. Excellent, Admiral Rogers replied. Continue with standard diplomatic protocols. Make them feel welcome. Understood, Admiral. One more thing, though. What is it, Captain? I think they're starting to realize what happened to the previous visitors. To our space. Their science officer has been scanning the debris fields we've passed. They're getting nervous. Admiral Rogers considered this. Are they nervous about us being dangerous, or nervous about us being dangerous to our enemies? Hard to say, Morrison replied. But I get the feeling they're trying to figure out if we're friendly neighbors or sleeping monsters. Well, Admiral, Rogers said with a slight smile, I suppose that depends entirely on how they choose to treat us. As she ended the communication, Admiral Rogers returned to her files. Commander Zethara stood in the main conference room aboard the Starweaver, staring at the data displayed on every screen around her. After 3 days of traveling with Captain Morrison and his crew, her science team had finally pieced together the terrifying truth about humanity. Dr. Vexeling stood at the main display, her hands shaking slightly as she presented her findings to the senior staff. What we're seeing here defies everything we know about galactic military capabilities, she began. I've analyzed the debris from 17 different battle sites, and the pattern is always the same. Lieutenant Crix leaned forward in his chair. What kind of pattern? Complete annihilation, Dr. Vexeling replied. Not defeat, not destruction, but total molecular disintegration. These alien fleets weren't just destroyed. They were reduced to their basic atomic components. She changed the display to show energy readings from the debris fields. The weapon signatures indicate technology that can manipulate matter at the quantum level. The humans aren't using conventional weapons, like plasma cannons or fusion missiles. They're using something that literally unmakes their enemies at the most fundamental level of reality. Zethara felt her stomach turn. How is that possible? I don't know, Dr. Vexlin admitted. The energy requirements alone should be impossible. To generate the power needed for this kind of destruction, you would need to harness the energy output of an entire star. Lieutenant Crix pulled up his own analysis. Commander, I've been studying the battle timelines based on the debris cooling patterns. The longest engagement lasted 8 minutes and 15 seconds. The shortest was under 3 minutes. 3 minutes to destroy an entire fleet? Zethara asked in disbelief. The Hegemon Third Fleet had 42 ships, Dr. Vexlin said quietly. Based on our analysis, they were all destroyed in less than 16 minutes. That's an average of one massive warship eliminated every 23 seconds. The conference room fell silent as the crew absorbed this information. Zethara looked at the tactical display, showing their current position. The Frontier Guardian was still escorting them toward Earth, its crew maintaining their friendly conversations and helpful guidance. There's something else, Dr. Vexlin continued. I've been monitoring the human ship's energy output during our journey. Their vessel is generating power levels that should tear apart any known starship design, but they're containing and controlling energies that would destroy planets. What are you saying? Zethara asked. I'm saying that the ship escorting us has enough firepower to eliminate our entire home fleet without breaking stride. Captain Morrison could vaporize our ship, our planet, and everything in our solar system, and it would barely register on his power gauges. Zethara walked to the viewing port and looked at the Frontier Guardian traveling alongside them. From the outside, it looked like a normal starship, but now she knew it was actually a weapon of unimaginable power, piloted by a species that could destroy civilizations with casual ease. Commander, Lieutenant Crix said softly, I've been analyzing the human communications I've intercepted. They're not just monitoring us. They're constantly evaluating our threat level and discussing what they call response protocols. What kind of response protocols? Zethara asked. They have detailed files on our ship's capabilities, our weapons, systems, and our military strength. They know exactly how dangerous we are, which apparently isn't very dangerous at all. They classify our entire civilization as a minimal threat entity. Dr. Vexlin brought up another display. I've also detected something disturbing about their ship's targeting systems. They're not just tracking us. They're tracking every piece of debris larger than a coin within 1,000 kilometers. Their weapons can apparently target and destroy objects as small as individual missiles while traveling at faster than light speeds. The implications hit Zethara like a physical blow. They could destroy every weapon we fired at them before. Those weapons traveled a single meter. That's not the worst part, Dr. Vexlin continued. Based on the energy readings, they could do it to thousands of ships simultaneously. The humans haven't just achieved military superiority. They've achieved military impossibility. Zethara returned to her chair, trying to process what they had learned. So every alien fleet that entered human space was completely outmatched from the moment they arrived. Outmatched doesn't begin to describe it, Lieutenant Crix said. It would be like a group of children with wooden swords challenging a being that could control lightning and earthquakes. The outcome was never in question. But why haven't the humans conquered the galaxy? Zethara asked. If they have this kind of power, they could rule every species in known space. Dr. Vexlin looked at her readings again. That's the most terrifying part of all this, Commander. They could have conquered us all decades ago, but they chose not to. They voluntarily limited themselves to a small region of space and warned everyone else to stay away. Think about what that means, Lieutenant Crix added. They're not staying in their territory because they have to. They're staying there because they want to. The boundaries around human space aren't to keep them in. They're to keep everyone else out. Zethara felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's temperature. So the galaxy isn't safe from human expansion because humans can't expand. The galaxy is safe because humans choose not to expand. Exactly, Dr. Vexelin said. And that choice could change at any time, for any reason. The communication panel suddenly activated, and Captain Morrison's friendly face appeared on the screen. Commander Zithara will be arriving at Earth in about 2 hours. I hope you and your crew are excited to see our home world. Zithara forced herself to smile normally. We're very much looking forward to it, Captain Morrison. Your hospitality has been exceptional. Morrison beamed with genuine pleasure. That's great to hear. We really want your species to understand that humans value peaceful relationships. We believe the galaxy is big enough for everyone to coexist happily. After Morrison ended the communication, Zethara looked around the conference room at her crew. They all understood the same terrible truth. The friendly, helpful humans who had been guiding them through space were members of a species that could eliminate any threat to themselves with devastating efficiency. Commander, Dr. Vexelin said quietly, I need to show you one more thing. She brought up a star chart showing human space and the surrounding regions. I've been analyzing the distribution of debris fields around human territory. They form a perfect defensive perimeter. Every major approach route to human space is marked by the remains of destroyed fleets. What does that tell us? Zethara asked. It tells us that the humans have turned the wreckage of their enemies into a warning system. Anyone approaching human space has to pass through multiple debris fields that announce exactly what happens to hostile visitors. Lieutenant Crix pointed to several locations on the map. Look at this pattern. The debris fields aren't random. They're positioned to create a psychological barrier. Any military commander planning to attack human space would have to travel for days through the remains of previous attempts. It's brilliant, Dr. Vexelin admitted grudgingly. They've created a defense system that doesn't require any active weapons or patrols. The mere sight of all those destroyed ships is enough to deter most potential attackers. Zethara studied the map. Hundreds of debris fields marked the graves of alien fleets that had challenged humanity. Each one represented thousands of lives, lost in dreams of conquest, turned to space dust. But some species still tried to attack them, she observed. Yes, Dr. Vexelin replied. And each failure just added to the warning system. Every defeated fleet became part of the message that human space was absolutely forbidden to hostile forces. Zethara realized something that made her even more uncomfortable. The humans didn't just defeat their enemies. They deliberately left the debris in place as a warning to others. Think about the implications of that, Lieutenant Crix said. They could have cleaned up the debris easily. Their technology is certainly advanced enough, but they chose to leave it there as a monument to their military power, or as a monument to the consequences of threatening them. Dr. Vexelin added. The conference room fell silent again as the crew contemplated their situation. They were traveling toward the home world of a species that had casually destroyed every military force that had ever challenged them. A species that could conquer the galaxy but chose not to. A species that left the wreckage of their enemies as warnings to anyone else who might be foolish enough to test their patience. Commander, Lieutenant Crix asked quietly, what do we do with this information? Zethara looked out at the stars ahead of them, where Earth waited with its friendly population and unimaginable weapons. We proceed with our diplomatic mission. We treat the humans with the respect that any advanced species deserves. And we make absolutely certain that we never give them a reason to show us the same hospitality they showed the hegemon fleet. And when we return home, Dr. Vexelin asked, when we return home, we tell our government exactly what we've learned, Zethara replied. That human space is marked by warning signs for a very good reason. And that the smartest thing any species can do is respect those warnings completely. Commander Zethara stood on the bridge of the Starweaver, watching Earth grow larger on the main screen. The blue and green planet looked peaceful and beautiful, nothing like the home world of the galaxy's most feared species. Captain Morrison had been giving them a tour of the solar system, pointing out human colonies and explaining their peaceful development. Everything changed when the proximity alarms suddenly activated across the bridge. "Commander," Lieutenant Crix shouted from his station. "Multiple ships entering the system at high speed. Configuration matches Krillian battle fleet signatures." Dr. Vexlin quickly ran her scanners over the approaching vessels. 43 ships, including 6 heavy cruisers and 2 dreadnoughts. They're heading directly for us. On the communication screen, Captain Morrison's expression shifted from friendly tour guide to something much more serious. "Commander Zethara, please hold your position and do not take any aggressive actions. We're about to have some uninvited guests." The Krillian fleet commander's voice suddenly filled the communication channels, broadcasting on all frequencies. "Human ships and alien vessel. This is Admiral Corks of the Krillian Expansion Force. You will surrender immediately and prepare to be boarded. Human space now belongs to the Krillian Empire." Zethara watched in horror as the massive alien fleet arranged itself in attack formation. She had heard rumors about Krillian military might, but seeing it in person was terrifying. Each of their ships was larger than the Starweaver, and their combined firepower could destroy planets. Captain Morrison's response was calm and measured. "Admiral Corks, this is Captain Morrison of the human vessel Frontier Guardian. You have entered human space with hostile intent. I am required to give you one warning. Leave immediately, or we will defend ourselves." Admiral Corks's laughter echoed across the communication channels. "One small human ship threatens an entire Krillian fleet? Your species' reputation for insanity appears to be well-deserved. Prepare to witness the power of the Krillian Empire." "Captain Morrison," Zethara said urgently, "you need to retreat. My ship can try to provide covering fire while you escape to get reinforcements." Morrison looked at her with genuine appreciation. "That's very kind of you, Commander, but it won't be necessary. Just stay where you are and everything will be fine." "But there are over 40 ships out there," Dr. Vexlin protested. "Your ship is outnumbered 40 to 1. Morrison smiled sadly. "Commander, I really wish Admiral Corks had chosen to leave peacefully. Humans genuinely prefer diplomatic solutions. But some species only understand one language." The Krillian fleet opened fire simultaneously. Hundreds of energy beams and missile salvos streaked toward the Frontier Guardian and the Starweaver. Zethara closed her eyes, expecting to die in the next few seconds. When nothing happened, she opened her eyes to see something impossible. Every single weapon fired by the Krillian fleet had simply vanished. Not destroyed, not deflected, but completely eliminated from existence before reaching their targets. The space between the fleets was empty and clean, as if the massive barrage had never existed. What just happened? Lieutenant Crix whispered. Captain Morrison's voice was calm, but carried a cold edge that Zethara had never heard before. "Admiral Corks, that was your warning shot. You fired on peaceful vessels in our space. You have 10 seconds to begin leaving our territory, or we will respond appropriately." Admiral Corks's voice returned, now filled with rage and confusion. "Impossible. Our weapons cannot simply disappear. What trick is this?" 9 seconds, Morrison replied quietly. "All ships, concentrate fire on the human vessel." Admiral Corks screamed, "Destroy them completely." The Krillian fleet unleashed everything they had. Every weapon, every missile, every energy beam their 43 ships could produce filled the space around the Frontier Guardian with deadly fire. Again, every weapon simply ceased to exist the moment it was fired. 5 seconds, Morrison said. "This is impossible." Admiral Cork shouted. Nothing can stop that much firepower. 3 seconds. Zethara watched the display showing the Krillian fleet. The alien ships were frantically trying to reload and fire. Again, but their weapons kept vanishing the instant they appeared. 1 second, Morrison said. I'm sorry it came to this. What happened next would haunt Zethara for the rest of her life. The Krillian ships didn't explode. They didn't break apart or burn. They simply stopped existing. One moment there were 43 massive warships filling the space around Earth. The next moment there was nothing but empty space and scattered atomic particles. The entire Krillian. Expansion force had been reduced to space dust. In less than 3 seconds, Dr. Vexlin stared at her instruments in shock. Commander, I'm not reading any debris. No wreckage at all. The Krillian ships have been completely disintegrated at the molecular level. Lieutenant Crix was frantically checking his sensors. How is that possible? There were over 200,000 Krillians on those ships. Where did they go? Captain Morrison's face reappeared on the main screen. He looked tired and sad, not triumphant. Commander Zethara, I apologize that you had to witness that. We really hoped Admiral Corks would choose to leave peacefully. Captain, Zethara said, her voice barely above a whisper, what did you just do to them? Morrison sighed deeply. We defended ourselves. The Krillians chose to attack civilians in our space after being warned to leave. Our response was measured and appropriate. Measured? Lieutenant Crix repeated in disbelief. You eliminated an entire fleet in 3 seconds. We could have done it in less time, Morrison replied matter-of-factly. But we wanted to give them every possible chance to reconsider their actions. Dr. Vexlin looked up from her station. Captain Morrison, our sensors detected no weapons fire from your ship. How did you destroy the Krillian fleet? Morrison paused for a moment before answering. Dr. Vexlin, human defensive technology operates on principles that most species haven't discovered yet. We prefer not to discuss the details, but I can tell you that we take the defense of our space very seriously. You warned them, Zethara said quietly. You gave them a chance to leave. We always do, Morrison replied. Humans believe in giving everyone a choice. Admiral Corks chose violence over peace. The consequences of that choice are his responsibility, not ours. As the Frontier Guardian continued escorting them toward Earth, Zethara realized she had just witnessed the answer to the galaxy's greatest mystery. Now she understood why every shipping route avoided human space. Why all military encounters with humans ended in complete disaster. Why even the most aggressive species in the galaxy refused to enter human territory. It wasn't because humans were monsters or warlike conquerors. It was because humans had achieved something that should have been impossible. They had become so overwhelmingly powerful that they could defend themselves against any threat while barely expending any effort. Captain Morrison, Zethara said, carefully, how long have humans possessed this level of technology? Morrison considered the question. Long enough to have conquered the entire galaxy several times over, if that had been our goal. But conquest was never what we wanted. We just wanted to be left alone to live our lives in peace. And if someone threatens that peace? Dr. Vexlin asked. Morrison's expression became cold and final. Then they discover why smart species avoid human space, just like Admiral Corks did. 2 hours later, the Starweaver was in orbit around Earth. Isara was preparing for the formal diplomatic meetings that would establish relations between their species. But her mind kept returning to what she had witnessed. The humans had the power to eliminate any threat instantly and completely. But they used that power only to defend themselves, and only after giving their enemies every chance to choose peace instead of war. Commander, Lieutenant Crix said quietly, what do we tell our government about what we've seen? Sarah looked at Earth spinning peacefully below them. Somewhere on that planet, Humans were going about their daily lives, working and playing and raising families. They seemed so normal, so peaceful. But she now knew they were the most dangerous species the galaxy had ever produced. "We tell them the truth," she replied. "We tell them that humans are exactly what they appear to be, a peaceful species that wants to be left alone. We tell them that human space is clearly marked, and that the warnings should be respected absolutely. And if someone asks why," Dr. Vexlin inquired. Zethara thought about Admiral Corks and his 43 ships that no longer existed. She thought about all the debris fields scattered around human space, marking the graves of every military force that had refused to respect human boundaries. "We tell them that some questions are better left unasked," she said finally. "The galaxy has survived this long by respecting the signs that say, beyond this point, human space. There's no reason to change that policy now." As diplomatic shuttles launched from Earth to welcome the Valian delegation, Zethara realized that her mission had been a complete success. She had established contact with humanity and learned everything she needed to know about them. Humans were peaceful neighbors who welcomed friendship and trade. They were also the most terrifyingly powerful species in the galaxy, capable of eliminating any threat with casual ease. But most importantly, they were a species that chose restraint over conquest, peace over domination,